Thank you for being here. We're gathering around. There may be one or two more come in, and we'll save seats right up front so everybody can see them when they're late. So that's how it works there. Janice, come in. Come in. Yeah. Thanks for being here. My dear wife, lovely assistant, wanted me to remind you that in case you have to be gone for a week, all of these classes are online. Go to the training center on the fellowship website, and you'll find them class by class, and they'll in there the notes and the video and the extra pieces we give out and so forth along the way. So feel free to use that. If you do not have one of these books, then there's one out there for you. And if you did not check in this morning, we'd like to have you do that on the way out. And I think that's all the logistics. Again, thank you for being faithful in the middle of summer. Did y'all have a good week?
Yes.
It may not say summer on the calendar, but it's here, folks, with a vengeance. We went straight into it, right at the 90-degree heat index or something. So anyway, we're in here. We're all cool here. So thank you for being here. Looking forward to the continuation of our pursuit of aligning our finances with the heart of God. And I do like this little thing up there. I don't know if you noticed it, but it's a man and a woman's hand. And getting together as a couple and getting our hearts aligned with God's heart and find it. There you go. Okay, hold it up. There. Okay, you caught it. Good job. Good job. So today we're going to talk about earning and spending. But as always, I want to have a word of prayer because it's God's conversation, and Don Reed is just a voice, a voice box, a vehicle. And I will say the things that need to be said, and we'll take away what is appropriate for each one of us. By the way, love to see the younger couples in here. What a great time to get things lined up rather than waiting till, like many of us probably have. I'm not saying I'm looking in the mirror, okay? But wow, starting out where you are, and especially when we get to lesson 5 on investing, if you guys start doing it at this age, I mean, you're by God's grace, you're going to be well set when you get to retirement, which is a plague in our culture right now. Retirees, as we'll talk, are not prepared to retire. I'll give you one little data point. The average boomer, boomers born between 46 and 64, the average boomer has $30,000 saved up for retirement. Is that incredible? Work 40 years, and all you got was $30,000 saved because we're in a consumer society. We're marketed to death. We'll see a slide on that today. So, glad to have you here. Sometimes I'm asked, what age people come to the class? I say, all age people. So thank you for making me speak the truth on that, validating that along the way. Anyway, loved your attention last week, and you look like you're ready to go. My wife asked me how the class was. I said, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. That's what they are, very alert. And so great to have you here. Let me pray. Father in heaven, thank you for a new day, and we're thankful that we live in the luxury of air conditioning, and even though it's going to warm up today, we can enjoy not only being here, but coming and going in our car and going air-conditioned home or restaurant or something. And you have blessed us, as we'll see in a little video, beyond measure, and we want to be a blessing to others. So, God, as these people have intentionally set aside time to look at what you say, we would pray for the Spirit to be our teacher and give us wisdom, that we might be able to handle things in a godly way and hear what we all want to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of the kingdom. Let this class be a part of it, I pray in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Okay, here we go. Earning and spending, but a little review. This is the Simon Sinek TED Talk from last week, where you talk about the why. That's what the things we do and follow through on are because we figured out the why am I doing this. Like you had to make a decision to come here this morning or not. You go, it's too hot. I'll just stay in my shorts and, turn on the service remote. But you said, no, this is important to me, and this is the why. So this course is about the why of generosity. Couple points just from last week. One, faithful management or stewardship of our resources brings eternal rewards. And I think I showed you this book last week by By the way, if you follow through, we're going to give you a book. Today we'll give you this one going out the door, Treasure Principle. You'll have the beginning of a little generosity library. And they're not long books to read. They're interesting, and people have appreciated it. But the Life God Rewards talks about the things we do with our stuff here is going to be reflected in eternity. I don't know if it's a bigger mansion or a better street or near a lake or what it is, but we kind of forget that. No, we just, bumble through life, and then, God takes us home. It doesn't make a lot of difference as long as I have Jesus in my heart. Actually, that's not the truth. It makes a lot of difference what we do. And as I said, in the back of this book, he says we're going to have two questions. What's the first one? What did we do with the gift of his son, Jesus? That'll depend where we spend eternity. The second question is, what did you do with the gifts of the stuff I gave you? And that will determine how we spend eternity. There's not a lot of information in the Bible, but enough hints along the way that we should, and we'll see the verse opening in this lesson of how seriously God takes that. So eternal rewards is one, and the second one is even deeper into why, is that our generosity reflects the generosity of our God. I saw a video this week on a Generous Living website of a guy who he was just passionate about it, gave it at one of those conferences, but interesting where he started out, before creation. And he says, look at the creation and the generosity in it to a world that had done nothing to deserve it. It was chaos and void and without form and black. And God started pouring out generosity day by day for 6 days. And then he went all the way through to Christ. It was a great energized production on reflecting the generosity of our God that we do not deserve. Remember, this is our byword. What we want for you, not what we want from you. And that's going to underlie all that we say. The from you will take care of itself if we understand the motivation in the for you. God wants to bless us, and that's not health, wealth, and prosperity teaching. Dave Ramsey says it this way, live like no one else did. Well, actually, he doesn't say it this way. I kind of change it because I say it better than Dave Ramsey does. In all humility. It's something like this is what Dave Ramsey says. Live like no one else today so that you can live like no one else tomorrow. Now, well, I'll have to be, full disclosure. He also, in recent years, people have been praying for him. He's a Christian. And he added in, live and give like no one else. Okay? But actually, our tomorrow has a different definition. Our tomorrow is the tomorrow of eternity, and Dave is basically tomorrow in this world. You get debt free, and you can, buy that new car, whatever along the way. So, Romans 12:2 is our key verse, and the last 3 words says, if you do it God's way, a huge motivation, huge why in this. It's going to be good. It's going to be pleasing. It's going to be cross out perfect and put in complete. Is the word teleos in Greek, teleological. It is going to be a complete plan. And as I said in the beginning, things we're talking about, it's not just theology, I know, but it's what Ray and I, my wife and I, have tried to practice, and increasingly so since 2005, when it was a wake-up point in our life after spending decades in local church ministry. So, the cycle financial stewardship is earning and spending. Now, it's interesting that God has chosen that as the system we all live in because he didn't have to do that. What was the system in the wilderness? Just go pick up lunch. There was no work for it. Well, even go back to the Garden of Eden. It was just there hanging on the tree. There was no spraying it for the bugs. There was no even waiting for it to ripen. Or when Elisha was out, in the dumps, feeling sorry for himself, what did God do to feed him?
Raisin cakes.
Raven cakes. Yeah, there you go. Raven burgers. Wow, that's exciting.
Raisins.
Oh, raisin cakes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But they brought the ravens.
Yeah.
The ravens dropped food for him too. Meat, actually.
Yeah.
So God is not limited to a earning spending cycle. Everybody follow me on that? He could have just put it on our doorstep every morning, but he says there's something in that, and that's a part of what we're going to unpack in the first part of this. There is something in that about earning a living and then being careful how we're spending. God looks very seriously upon how we handle our wealth, and I've intimated that in a couple of comments that I made thus far. He looked very seriously upon how we handle our wealth. And the verse is, if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, again, that's what did you do with the stuff I gave you, then who will trust you with true riches? Over the last 10 years, going back a year, I have stopped and asked the class of well-informed, biblically literate, fellowship Bible people, what is true riches? And so I ask you. And I get the same look, for 10 years. And then, guess what? I saw a book that was published called
True Riches.
True Rich. Great, I finally got an answer to it. And actually, it's the next slide where at least it's one author's view on what God is talking about. But the interesting part of this verse is it says, God's looking. Remember God's pie last week? Where was God? At the end of the table looking. Remember that? With the pie all divided up? And he didn't get any of it? Okay, God is looking and watching how we handle worldly wealth. There's a guy, Alan Barnhart. I think maybe we have a video clip of him. But he went through the Bible. He's a multimillionaire in Memphis, Tennessee, a businessman who gave it all to God. But he went through the Bible and studied every passage that had to do with possessions or money. And he said, here was my conclusion, a great fear of the Lord. Now, fear not and I'm scared, but a great respect for God. And he is watching what I do. True riches. So what are they? According to this author, it is moving from pride to gratitude. Look at me, look at the job I got, look at the promotion I got, look at the car I drive. From pride to gratitude. From anxiety, what am I going to do with gasoline at $5 a gallon? Yeah. I saw a little thing out. Hey, wish me congratulations. We're closing on a full tank of gas next week. I love the humor. Okay. We're all stressed out about it. The economy or politics or whatever. From anxiety to trust. From covetousness, boy, I wish I had a Tesla versus the Infiniti I drive. Our covetousness of wanting something, greener grass on the other side of the fence. To contentment. We'll look at a couple verses on that. And the last one was really interesting. From indifference to love. Like, I don't care what's happening in Ukraine. Or I don't care if they're hungry people, homeless under the bridge in Fayetteville, I don't know, wherever around here. To loving people is a part of having true riches. Anyway, the book is there. You want to get it and read more about it, but that's the Cliff Notes on it. Now, the next slide talks about people who, in fact, know that God is watching and and he is wondering about how we handle worldly wealth. It's kind of small, but I'll give you the just quick overview of it. It's a study of 5,444 givers, tithers. That means they're probably giving 10% or something like that. And the left column is the green for if you're a tither, and the right column is red if you're a non-giver. Okay, so you got what are these categories? If you honor God with what He's given you, versus you say, no, it's all mine, I'll do what I want to. Let me just quick go down some of them. Okay, debt-free, 28% if you're giving to God. 13% if you're a Christian and a non-tither. On a mortgage, 52, 66 if you're saying it's all mine. Making car payments, 26, 38. Credit card bills over 30 days, in other words, you don't pay them off every billing cycle. Double 2040. Debts of 2,500 to 50,000, 3641. Debts over 50,000, 1525. What's the trend here? What is trending?
The non-Christians or non-tithers are, yeah,
Worst financial shape, right?
that's it.
Go right down the list consistently. I remember reading a book and it was a little illustration of two guys, and they're both like in their 20s. Are you in your 20s? Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, in their 20s, they're talking, how am I going to get rich? And one guy says, I'm going to take 100% of what I have and just invest it well. And the other guy said, I'm going to take 90%, I'm going to tithe to God and invest that well. And the conclusion of it, according to this author, said, each guy thinks the other guy is stupid. Right? So in this, tither guy says, you're not going to win with that 100%, I can tell you. And the guy looking at the other goes, why wouldn't you invest 100%? Not just 90%. But anyway, stats up there, 5,444 people by a guy by the name of Brian Kluth, who was a pastor in Colorado Springs, now has a ministry called Maximum Generosity. Jesus knew the potential risk of dealing with our material wealth. Verse, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, you'll be devoted to one, despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that there's anywhere else it says you cannot serve God and something. But this is the focus, the spotlight is on money because God knew how serious that was going to be. As I think that maybe the next slide. Yeah, Jesus, throughout the Bible, there are 2,350 verses that talk about money. As I said at the beginning of the class, I think, if we're looking for financial counsel, where do we usually go? Financial planner, CPA, our banker. As Christians, we don't go where there's already 2,500, 2,350, maybe 2,500 verses where God has said, here's the way that will be good, pleasing, and complete. We just go, no, I need to find a financially wise person. Well, Jesus said, I'm going to talk a lot about it. In fact, he talked more about material wealth than prayer, heaven, faith, hope. Is that amazing? Because he knew what our struggle was going to be. And you can't follow God and follow money. And that's why the subtitle of this class is Align Your Finances with the Heart of God. Because it's not even an easy thing to do. Because we're so tempted with the material stuff of our world. God looks for faithfulness in managing his possessions. A couple verses here. Here's what we all want to hear, as I mentioned in my prayer. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. I want to stop right there. Okay, if this is where we're heading, if we're faithful, what happens if we do a good job while we're here? What does the verse say? We get more responsibility. We're all looking for retirement. like what kind of a promise is that? You talk about the why and the motivation so I can work harder. Well, the difference is going to be that we will not have the sin factor in the equation. Everybody with me? And we had dinner with a couple last night that go to Mosaic with us and friends and talking about her new job. She goes, this, that. And we all know that. We all work. I have to deal with people at work and whatever. And it's never easy because there's a lot of defectiveness in us and everybody else around us. That's what makes work so hard. If you take that out of the equation, actually work is going to be a joy. And we'll say, God, give me more because I love to serve you who gave your best for me. That makes sense? But you look at it at the surface, you go, man, I want to retire, not be given more. I love God's humor. Jesus told his disciple there was a rich did I not finish that one? Oh yeah, come and share in your master's happiness. That will be happiness serving God. Not a bad assignment. Not the short stick or the short straw, okay? God is a good and generous God. Happiness. Jesus told his disciples another time when God talked about money, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in. Again, God is watching. What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management because you cannot be manager any longer. Is it any wonder that Memphis guy said, I have a great fear of God? Because he could take that away in a heartbeat. And that, in fact, there's a verse that says, what is it? 1 Timothy 6:17, those who are rich in the present world don't put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but hope in God who gives us all things richly to enjoy. It can be gone in a heartbeat along the way. Okay, this is a little video that just kind of digs into the why and what's behind the things that God gives us and where we are as blessed people of God. And there's a question at the end, and we'll answer that question, or I may ask you as the question. So, if everything works. One more click. Sorry, I got a little loud at the end there. I think that's cranked up. So the question is, what if this were the plan all along? What's the answer to that? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're, beginning to see how this all fits together, but generous God, generous to us, generous to others. I mean, if that's all you got out of the course, it would be what we've given to you, not asked from you. That makes sense? If we just get a perspective that is right. And as I say, it's hard in this society that we're advertised to death and marketed to death. But I love the question at the end. What if the plan were not to accumulate, but in fact to distribute along the way? Life would change. Earning money. Okay, get to the heart of it. 92% of people who go to work are unhappy, don't like their jobs, can't wait to quit or retire. Statistic, not Don Reed's guessing. Now, What is Wednesday called in the work week?
Okay,
Why?
it's the middle of the week.
Finally, slide to the weekend.
Coming, yeah.
What is Friday called?
Friday.
TGIF. Yeah, it depends how religious you are. It's either thank goodness it's Friday or thank God it's Friday. You know, and I am out of this slave pit. Okay, that's the world's view of work. You know, because it is so hard and things are so unfair, and you know we work hard and we don't get rewarded for it. One of our granddaughters worked for a retailer that I will not name in the area, and was managing 2 stores. She was supposed to be just a clerk, but she has natural gifted leadership. She was managing 2 stores, decided I got to find a job with health insurance, which is another discussion. But and she said, I've accumulated 82 hours of comp time. They go, we're not going to pay you for that. And yeah, I know, like, and she's a very strong person. That she got 40 hours out of them of 82 that she had worked. Is it any wonder, you know, we want to get out of there, you know, along the way. It's not easy. The other thing, how many of you know Strengths Finder, the assessment? Okay, this statistic partly comes out of that. Because if you don't know it, it's an online Gallup.com, the public opinion polling group, Strengths Finder, and they identify the 34 strengths that are common to the human population. That's not all of them, but it's the top 34. You take this little assessment online and you find the top 5, and then if you can find a job where you get to use those, it won't feel like going to work ever. Because you do it with excellence, you do it almost effortlessly, you just can't help but doing it, okay? And you will be appreciated and rewarded for it along the way. It's getting in the place where, yeah.
What's the name of it?
Okay, Gallup.com is a place to start. And it's called Strengths Finder. Strengths with an S on it, Finder. And I don't know, $14.95 or $19.95 or something. You take an online thing and they will send you a printout with your top 5 strengths and give you definitions of it. And this is how you will perform. And I was so freed up 15 years ago when I found out, you know, what that was in my own life, because you stop trying to be somebody else. That's one thing. You learn to say no to what you don't do well. And you try to find a job that'll let you work in your areas of your strength. I mean, the 92% just makes so much sense when you see. I'll give you an illustration of how it works. Say that this is a group of salespeople in here, and I will say Paul is the top salesman. What do we promote him to help our company? Sales manager. Guess what Paul gets to do? He was out selling widgets, and he loved to, you know, have coffee and bagels and stop and see people and climb on the back and so forth. Guess what we ask him to do now? You stay here and look at spreadsheets all day. Well, how happy is Paul going to be? Well, he likes the office with a window on 2 sides. You're in a corner office. And he likes the bonus that he got, but he hates coming to work. And that's what's happened across corporate. And more that I could talk about, but we'll need to get off of that. But that's 92%. Okay, earning money. God's view of work. It starts right here to get the right perspective. Remember Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the way the world thinks about work, but be transformed by renewing your mind. Okay? We're going to do a little renewal right here. God's view of work, it's good. It was a part of a perfect creation. The verse is Genesis 2. In what chapter do we get sin? 3. Work came before sin. In fact, it was God's work of creation. God worked 6 days and then he rested. This is embedded so deeply in the being made in the, image of God. Imago Dei, okay? We are made in the image of God and we're made to work. In fact, Jesus said about his Father, my Father is what?
Working.
Always working. Always working on our behalf. And we say, I don't want to work. I hate work. Well, we get the right lens on here. God said to Adam and Eve, work the garden and take care of it. We don't know what that meant. Was it picking off the overripe fruit? There were no bugs, there were no weeds. So what do you do to work the garden? I don't know that. But work was a part God designed and God spoken, and the good thing to do. Work is commanded in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, right in the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. 6 days shall you work, and shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath unto the Lord. Paul reflected that. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. Now, there is a pastor who serves here at Fellowship, who has a number of kids, who has told this story publicly, I'm not telling out, that he had a son who did not want to work. He wanted, rather than get a summer job, he wanted to go to Beaver Lake and ski with his friends. Well, that's enjoying all things that God gives to us. But finally he came to saying, okay, you can stay here, but no meals here, because you're not working. I mean, that's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to do. But we live in a culture that rewards non-work. Another discussion. Just something I know. Yeah, we're on point. Okay, work develops character. This is God's view. Work develops character. Slaves, and I put in the current word, though you may feel like a slave at work. Employees, obey your earthly employers in everything, and do it not only when their eye is on you, when they're watching, but to curry their favor. Oh, the boss is coming. I need to open my computer and get off that game I was on. But with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord. And again, that's perspective. Who are we working for when we go to work? God is the right answer. Because, remember the video, God is watching. God is watching. And he has a reason that he wants us involved to work. Work is God's means of support. And I'm going to unpack this verse maybe at a new level to you. But anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work and doing something useful with their own hands. It's a part of our design. We need to be making a contribution. There's a book title that was very popular a few years ago. It's called In Search of Significance. What am I doing to pay rent for the space that I'm taking up while I'm here? What's the residue I leave behind? What's the legacy? We all want that, whether it's grandchildren or whether it's, whatever it is. We want to leave something behind that said this person was here and made a difference in our world. It's just common to us. How do we get that? At least part of it from working along the way. It should bring satisfaction and fulfillment. Again, kind of links in with StrengthsFinder. Serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do. Who's going to reward? God is watching you at work. In fact, the prayer of David in 1 Chronicles 29 that we looked at last week on God Owns It All, it says in there, in his hand are power to give strength and exalt all. If he wants you promoted, in fact, I just read Proverbs yesterday morning. He who, I forget the words, but it was about he who is faithful at his work will, in fact, talk to kings. Okay? If you're doing your work good, you're going to rise up. The boss is going to know you. And, the number of you are shaking your heads because it's true. Sometimes not fair. Go back and read Joseph on that. But there are those things. But by and large, here's the rest of Ephesians 4:28. Under the topic, work is God's way to provide for your family and for others in need. Here's what I call Ephesians 4:28. The verse that said, God never intended you to spend your whole paycheck. What? Where do you get that? Well, what is it? Support your family and who? Others in need. Now, I want to unpack the word steal, because when we might first read that, Paul was saying, okay, you who took something from your neighbor, then you stop that and you go to work. So you don't have to steal and give your neighbor and sell something that belonged to your neighbor. But what if steal in the context of this verse? What if steal meant that if we spend 100% of our paycheck, we just stole from somebody poor that needed it? Follow that? says, you who've been stealing, maybe not taking this from neighbor, but you who used it all on yourself, you should have not only enough for your family, but also to share with others in need. A cartoon came to my mind. It was called Great Fences Make Great Neighbors. And it was about somebody stealing from the neighbor and there's somebody next door that will sell it for him. You know the word fence is used for, Oh! Why did that come to my mind? Okay, what you earn, this is again a shocker. What you earn from working is what God has given you to spend. Try overlaying that on American culture. How do we avoid that rule? What is it called? Plastic. Credit cards. We don't have to live within our income. That's why you only have 30,000 left, at the end of a working career for your retirement. By the way, the 30,000, just while I'm talking about that, the rule for dipping into your savings in retirement, we'll talk about that later, but is 4%. What is 4% of 30,000? $1,200. Divided by 12 months gives you how much per month for your retirement? $100 a month. Welcome to retirement in the U.S. for many, many people along the way. It's really sad. Contentment is not based on what we earn or have. It is a learned behavior. This great chapter where Paul writes about it, he says, I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, fed or hungry, live in plenty or want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Contentment with what God has given to us, because that's connected to work, earning, what we have, how we distribute it along the way. And again, writing to the young preacher, but godliness with contentment is great gain. And again, it goes back to the true riches, right? Covetousness, I want more, or contentment along the way. That's really the two ends of the continuum, and we're all somewhere along the way there. Discontentment is the primary marketing strategy in our culture. Here's a little data point. If you watch 30 hours of TV per week, some are shaking their head, but some people do that, it's on all the time. 30 hours per week, you're going to spend $500 more on widgets per month, Well, there's a new thing that'll comb my hair automatically. I don't have to get out of bed. I mean, whatever it is. Oh, well, Paul, you don't need it. It's okay. But you will spend because there's that new thing, new way to cut your cabbage, a new way to get your tires cleared. Market. We are the most marketed society in any of human history. We get between 300 and 500 between this and billboards and, wherever on your computer, and every time you open it, there's a banner going along the bottom, the top, the side, and you need this along the way. Marketing. Again, taking God's look at it, the Lord said to Samuel, the Lord does not look at the things people look at. Oh, there's a different look. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Okay. So, again, aligning our finances with the heart of God. He may not be so concerned with what we drive or what we wear or where we live. He's more concerned with our heart, because that's what's going into eternity, not that house or car or savings account along the way. The next slide, I want to make an apology before I show it to you. How many of you know the name of a Christian lady author, Jen Hatmaker? Yeah, some of us do. However, she is kind of gone sideways on some things now. So I love the quote, but I'm not in agreement necessarily with where she is walking right now. Okay, so I do that with that caveat. Jen Hatmaker, by the way, she has a book called Seven. She had a family with teenagers, and they did a rule of 7 for a month. She only had 7 outfits that she wore for a period of 31 days, ladies. Now, maybe it's in combinations, tops, bottom, whatever. There were only 7. They only had 7 things on the menu for a whole week or for a whole month. So she's eating repeating meals and so forth. Her interesting comment on it was, after that month of only wearing 7 things, there wasn't one woman that said, "Why are you wearing that blouse again?" Nobody even mentioned it. I said at the class, one of the class somewhere, and said, "No, they didn't mention it, but all the women were thinking it." So I don't know, what goes on in the heart. But the point was, we have so much, we think. And here's the difference between if a man says, "I don't have anything to wear," and a woman says, "I don't have anything to wear." What is the difference? The man means, "I don't have anything clean to wear." The woman means, "I don't have anything new to wear." That's man, woman. Okay. Because we're just, it's different life. Okay. We need to read. Why are we still starving for nourishment after our 6th Bible study in a row? How can people supposedly filled with the Spirit be so enamored with the luxuries of this world to the detriment of the other 99% who suffer so? How can we be the richest people on earth and still be so unhappy? Does my craving for more neutralize the enough that Jesus says he is? If I'm patterned after my Savior, why does my life look exactly like everyone else's, with the exception of some stellar church attendance? The tension is finally pinpointed here. As believers in the Western Church, how can we have so much and do so little with it? That's pretty convicting, and we should move right on, I'm sure.
Don't that too long.
Right. So if I wear the different shirt next week, you're going to go, what? Okay, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed. I mean, we've talked a number of points. It's not what you look like. It's not how you think about work. We're working at transformed thinking in this course. Now, Don Reed is not hard-hearted about work. Sometimes there are minimal opportunity from work to work. When our family moved here, that includes 2 married kids and grandkids. Our daughter was looking for a job here, and it took her 18 months to get it because she was a double major out of California University in HR and managerial accounting. That doesn't mean just accounting, that's managing a team of accountants. So it took her 18 months and 35 interviews to find a job where they would hire her for what she was trained for. So I got that. She has a great work ethic, and accountants can always do tax work, and they could also always keep books for a little company here and here. So she did, but nothing with benefits, and she was a single mom and needed insurance and so forth. So sometimes there's minimal opportunity for work. Health, accident, infirmity, disability. There's a couple was in our small group at the time. In a 30-day period of time, they have a boy and a girl. In a 30-day period of time, mom, dad, son, daughter were all in emergency. And we reached out and helped them as a community group. Sometimes it just happens, but for normal life, work is part of what God expects from us. Here's a particularly challenging area: children and work. It is a problem in our affluent society, which develops an entitlement mentality. Okay, we'll unpack that a little bit. By the way, did anybody see any articles? I tried to look it up and couldn't find any, that swimming pools across the country are not opening because of the worker shortage of lifeguards. Did anybody else see that? Yeah, I Googled it and it didn't come up. But that's just one symptom of what we're talking about right here. Here's the problem in our society. When I grew up, which was a long time ago, 92%. Don't shake your head, yes, Scott, about a long time ago.
I'm sure to reaffirm.
Thank you for the affirmation. Okay, when I grew up, 92% of people lived in the country. I grew up on a farm. There was never a problem with, is there work for Don Reed to do? My dad made sure of that at 4 years of age. I had my calves to feed. Okay, but we have teenagers today. And we live, in a house maybe with a backyard 3 times this size, and we say, okay, go mow the lawn. 17 minutes later, they're back in the house, on their video game. Everybody get the picture? We are in a very difficult place in our society, and it's ending up in a worker shortage and more stuff we could talk about. I had a youth pastor who worked for us a couple times up in Sioux Falls when he was a seminary student in Sioux Falls. And another time we hired him back out of Canada because he was so great. And one day he said to me, Don, I'm recommending to parents of teenagers that they don't get a part-time job. I go, Alan, boy, that's that's different. I knew he was a smart guy, and I go, why? And two things he said. What I've watched in the youth student division is as soon as they get jobs, their grades begin to slip off because they're working 10, 15, 20 hours and grades. But the other thing was even more. He said, the other thing I've seen is you get a 16-year-old, it says, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to get a job. Okay, well, go work, Sonic or Chick-fil-A or wherever. So they get a job, but what's the problem? They don't have a car. Well, guess who buys the car for the 16-year-old? Because they don't want to be bothered getting them and picking them up and, interrupting their schedule. And then mom and dad pay for the insurance, the gas, we could go down the list of things. But here's what Alan said. What I've seen happen is that we are training a generation that thinks that money is only for fun. Got that? But we don't have to pay for the food we eat or the bed we sleep in or the car we drive. And he said, I'm against that. That's the entitlement mentality. There was a video I saw somewhere, it was University of North Florida sociology class, in their senior year was being asked, going out, what does the world owe you, basically? What do you expect when you go out to the world? Well, starting salary of $92,000, 8 weeks off, all of my student loans paid off. This is in an actual survey they did in sociology class, okay? And it's because of the way in our culture we haven't helped our kids. And by the way, Scott, you know that Dave Ramsey says, don't pay allowances to your kids, pay what? Commissions. Because that's the way the world works. You work, you get something. So rather than giving, 20 or 40 or 200 a week, to your kid, you have a list of things on the refrigerator or on the chalkboard. It says, here's the backyard. You can mow that, it's $25. You want to get something, you work for it. And we got a lot of correction to do in our society on this particular point.
I think what's been interesting, even on that.
Go.
Is that
Yeah, go.
I've often asked those parents, everyone here, who worked when they grew up? And almost everyone did work when they grew up.
Yes.
I go, why aren't your kids?
Yeah.
Why aren't you passing it? And then they'll tell me, oh, well, their education's what they need to do. Yeah, there's something goes along with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
But everyone seemed to have worked growing up, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
they don't want their own kids.
We switched the.
But again, there's more entertainment things to do. There's more.
Yeah.
Never had driving baseball. Never had this. Never had that. There were so many things to do now.
Yeah.
But work has kind of been shifted away. It's been interesting to watch.
Great to have Scott here. How many years have you been teaching financial peace?
11 years.
Yeah, 11 years. I probably misquoted Dave Ramsey. I should have.
That's all good.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for the input. We switched, when we moved to affluence as a culture, and we're not training people in work along the way. By the way, our son was at John Brown for years. Paul, you could probably tell his story better, but there was a teacher there who quit teaching and started doing building and grounds. His name is?
Oh, I know who you mean.
Yeah. And
I'm
why?
a terrible name guy.
Yeah, that's okay. Mine is Don Reed.
I know you don't. Yeah, it took a while, but I remember your name.
But this professor quit teaching and took up heading up the building and grounds department just to mentor kids in what it means to work.
Yeah. He's well known.
He is well known
Can't
for that.
remember his name, but
Been doing it for 20 years or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
5 of our 6 grandkids went through that.
He's amazing.
Weeding the flower bed and picking up leaves and washing the windows in the dorms and
our
so
son
forth.
worked with him.
Yeah. Hundreds of kids have gone through John Brown. And our grandkids, if you will talk to them, you go, I didn't know about work. I wonder if they still know about work, but at least they got a taste of what it meant to report
That's
for
right.
work. 7 o'clock in the morning, you're late twice, you are fired.
Wow.
Where do you get that discipline? Anyway, enough rant. How we handle our money is an index of our true character. If you want a biblical story, it's the prodigal son. How the more money we have, the more we reveal our character. He had half of the estate. What did he do? Well, some people might say, well, that turned him bad. No, he was bad before, simply said. Money does not spoil us. They just reveal who we are on the inside out along the way. So we're back to this. Trustworthy. If you're not trustworthy, what can God trust you with? I was thinking of the verse this morning that says, he who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. And that's the thing, whether it's you and your kids or your work people, your employers, your supervisors, he who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. That's God too. And he would love to give us more if we are using it rightly. We need God's wisdom in this area. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. Isaiah, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts. That's why he put 2,350 verses in the Bible that are his thoughts about stuff. Not names of the kings, not even the 10 Commandments. Just here's what you do with your stuff. The most significant difference in God's view of material wealth and our view is that the living Lord is the central focus. And this goes back to, and I'll come up with a couple questions here. Maybe they're already in your notes. Are they in your notes? Two things. One, who is the owner?
Oh, yeah.
As we handled last week, who is the owner and what is his desire? We're right back to where we were. God owns it all. We are the managers, and we ask him what he wants us to do. And that is a lifelong journey, and we don't do it perfectly. And Ray and I would be the first ones to raise our hand on that. Okay, there are only three things that we can do with our money: giving, saving, and fun. Now, I have to describe fun in this context. It is more fun to drive here this morning than walk. It is more fun to have lunch than to not have lunch. So fun is a broad category. You could say spending, but fun is a more fun word. The things that God gives us to enjoy. And again, that 1 Timothy passage, God gives us richly all things to enjoy. The enjoyment of riding in an air-conditioned car when we go from here. Eating something today, being with friends, whatever it is. Lots of things to enjoy. Now, I have a quote here that came out of a secular book, and he's right in the divisions, and he's dyslexic in the order. Got all that? Here's what the guy said, somebody by the name of Stroman, in a book called Asking About Asking, and if you're a salesman and you don't know this book, you should get it. And it has a triangle of hierarchy on when it's right to ask somebody for a close on a sale. But he said to have a balanced financial plan and a balanced life, you must spend, save, and give part of every dollar. Yeah. We're going to start out next week in the order that was on the previous slide. We're going to talk about giving, saving, spending. Okay? Because that's the transformed God way of looking at what we earn along the way. Okay, that's it for today. Got you 5-7 minutes early, but time for a question or two or comment or whatever.
Which one of those books are you going to give us?
I'm going to give you this one. Thank you. That was the right question you were supposed to ask right at the end before I forgot.
You don't remember?
Okay, we're going to give you something every week. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to the CD last week about my friend out in Monterey, California, but that's a fun recording. This one is really the primer or the handbook on generosity, and it's unpacking of Matthew 6, 19, and 20. Which says, do not lay up treasures for yourselves on earth. Okay, so again, it's perspective on where we're putting our treasure. Do not lay up treasures for yourself on earth, where moth and rust corrupt, and thieves break in and steal. Then the reverse, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not corrupt, and thieves do not break in and steal. So transform thinking, because you ask 100 people at the mall today, what's the world about? Well, earning, making a lot of money, buying what I want to buy. Okay, that's accumulation. Treasures on earth that are all going to burn. But this says, Matthew 6, 19, and 20, don't go that route. It's not God's heart for you. It's not where satisfaction comes. But lay up treasures for yourselves in heaven. Now, there's a couple words in there, a word repeated twice that is kind of new news in a lot of Christian circles. And it's a little word, yourselves. We go, I'm laying up rewards to give to Jesus. But here's one of the places where, in fact, Jesus' own word says, lay up treasures for who? Yourself. If you want to put a little word down, it is called, what's it called? Enlightened self-interest. Okay, like I finally woke up. That's a part of what, we want to give you in this 6 weeks, is enlightened self-interest. What God does have for us. And there are rewards that we're going to see in heaven and reflecting how we handled our stuff down here. Okay? It's about the third time I've said it in a different way. What?
Quick question.
Sure.
When a lot of us older people, when we grew up, I know that my parents would always say, well, it's great to give to this, and this, but make sure you get a receipt because you can count on your taxes. And so I had a little bit of a consternation or a mini argument with them in that I wanted to give something that I wasn't going to be able to get a receipt for.
Yep.
And so the tax purposes are different now. You can't do as much of that. But I'm just wondering, does anybody ever, can anybody relate to that? Because it really, for a lot of us, it was like, and I would wonder, that's an American privilege for a while that we could do, but does that really have anything to do? Like, is there some biblical principle at work there? Or?
Okay. Two things in response to that, Paul. Good question and good struggle. The first is that our government encourages us to give and get charitable receipts, and that's a part of, there's pressure from time to time about removing that from our country. Well,
Yeah.
Look at all of the things that are being done, good that's being done by religious charities. In this country would change radically if that were taken away. It's a part of our support of the poor, number one. Secondly, it bumps up against another misunderstood verse about do not let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. We've all heard that verse. Don't let anybody know about your giving. Actually, that's not what that says. It says it is in the context of when you give to the poor, do not brag about it.
Right.
Not your giving, if whatever you want to give to Pioneer Bible Translators. And you get a charitable receipt so somebody knew about it. See, in that verse where it says left hand, right hand, it says if you let people know, you're not going to get even eternal credit for it. Actually, that's only true with giving to the poor. In other words, just help the poor. Don't look for a receipt. Because they're not going to give you write it down the palm of your hand, whatever. But yeah, the other point I want to make is that a statistic is something like 74% of charitable giving in the United States, I'm not sure religious, but it's certainly in there, about 74% is given beyond charitable receipt limits. Okay. Do you hear what I'm saying there? Okay. Like in the normal tax thing, IRS right now, it's 50% of our AGI is the max that you can give to a charity and get receipts for it. Okay, so you go, you have your total amount and some deduction, and then on the back side of your 1040 at the top, it'll say adjusted gross income.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they do taxes and so forth. Well, we can only give, as of this year, 50%. During COVID, there were a couple of years you could give 100%. So that does change. But there is a limit on how much you can get receipted for. But 74% of people, in other words, philanthropy and generous giver like that multimillionaire in Memphis I was mentioning, he didn't worry about charitable receipts. He may take the half, but he lives on an average salary, by the way, of under $100,000. In his company, last video I saw, they were making $250 million a year. And all the 5 kids are grown up now, and he's living on $80,000. $250 million. It's a great backstory. I'll tell you another day. Huh?
You can get some of that today.
You want the responsibility?
Okay.
See, that's the fear of the Lord that he talked about. You know, there's a verse that says, God, don't make me rich and don't make me poor. For if I were poor, I would be tempted to steal. And if I were rich, what does it say? I would be proud or something like that. Is it proud? What is
I
it?
would dishonor your name.
I would dishonor, thank you. I would dishonor your name. You know, we go, I got it made. You know, my house is
Where's
paid
that
off,
at?
my
I don't
car's
need
paid
you.
off, and I'm retiring at 42.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Be righteous to only my any bread.
Where's that at? Go to a FIRE website. Financial Independence Retire Early. And they got the formula for it. I don't recommend it, but no, I'm kidding you. Okay, any other question? Otherwise, we're gonna let you go here. Anything else? Get your free book on the way out. And have a great week. See you next week. You're a great class. Love it.
Thanks, Donna. Great stuff.
Just what God says. That's all it is.
Oh, I know.
30.
You're communicating well.
So you didn't even have to run off
No,
road?
no, it's Proverbs 30.
Proverbs 30? Yeah, yeah. It's a great verse. Oh, yeah, I'd like to have all of that. Really?
I pray that every day.
Yeah, how does the camel go through the eye of the needle? That's a rich people's challenge. You know?
We're all rich.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
We're all rich and we're all poor.
We are.
Done, thank you.
Okay, great to have you guys here. Okay, another week.
Another week.
Oh, thank you.
Very attentive class.